So we're gonna stitch this up here. This is the axe, this wet molded axe sheath I've been working on. It's for a roofing axe or a carpenter's axe, and we're just gonna do a quick tutorial here on how I stitch, how I get my how I get my seams even, how I get everything to go the way the way that it's supposed to here, and how everything lines up nicely. First thing that I like to use to make sure all of these holes line up. Obviously, we have our chisels here, but those are are good. But this right here, this is an awl. It's a stitching awl made by Craft Tool. It's diamond shaped. Okay, you probably can't see that, but it is diamond shaped, and I use that in here to make sure that the holes are opened up well and that they maintain the diamond shape, which helps us to get this effect of a slanted stitch. Okay, and so we're going to be using an off-white artificial sinew, and this is it right here. Very inexpensive stuff. So, guys, nothing sucks more when you're doing this and running out of thread whenever you're stitching. So be generous on your thread, and don't run out. Okay. So first thing we do when we're threading the needle is we're going to go ahead and stick it through there. We're going to turn it around, and I like to leave about an inch or so, 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And see that? I'm going to poke it straight through there, just like so. Pull that down, and just pull it tight. Now that's solid. So we're going to do that on the other side. We're going to take our other saddle stitching needle, thread it through, go back about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And that should stay tight. As long as you get it in the middle of the thread, that should stay tight for a long time, and you're not going to have to mess with it too much. So here we go. This is a stitching pony. This is the kind that I like. It's got a plank that fits underneath your leg, and for me it's perfect working height here. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to take our awl and we're going to poke it through our hole here. Make sure that everything's nice and opened up. And this is the trickiest part of this whole deal, is making sure that everything is opened up and ready for you to work. Keep a small pair of pliers handy in case you need to pull the needle through at any point. Okay. Okay, being that this is the first stitch, we're going to go back through again. We go to the first stitch, and then we go back through the first hole, and we double that first stitch up. You don't, man, I know a lot of people don't do this, but it's something I like to do, so I do it. Come back through the original second hole, and we'll just make a little double loop right there. That's going to go ahead and tighten that down for our first stitch here. back through a second hole. Yeah, there we go. Now we're solid. And that will ensure that we will not have any problems of our stitch starting to unravel from our starting point. But you shouldn't, because on a saddle stitch you should have it in the middle of your thread. Now you see I'm grabbing the needle that I just pulled through. I'm grabbing it on each side. I'm grabbing that thread on each side and I'm pulling it back like this to make room for my other needle to come through. That way it doesn't puncture. It opens up the hole a little bit and it doesn't puncture that other thread. Because if it does puncture the thread as you're pulling it through, you're gonna have problems. This is the part that makes handmade leather so expensive. Of course, the tooling and stuff too, but you know, and some of the stuff I've done, I've spent more time on the stitching, especially on a collar or something like that for a dog, where you got literally, you know, for a big dog, you could have 48 inches of stitches. They come out beautifully, but it takes a long time to hand stitch with this method 48 inches. You know, my dog's collar is a 22-inch collar. And he's not even the biggest, you know. So, you know, some big dogs, they have a very big neck. But if you want this super strong, very solid stitch, then it's going to cost. Not that I mind doing it. It's just it's one of the more laborious parts of the trade. Leather tends to close up on you as you're working with it, so if you work quickly, then you'll be okay if you do a few holes ahead of time. So here's the back. Okay, this is the part where you do your loop it in your lock on the saddle stitch. Okay, so if you're wondering why my front didn't come out like this, it's because this is a soft piece of leather. All right, the holes were punched here. It's a soft piece of leather and it's very pliable. So it whenever I punched the holes, the leather didn't stay down. Okay, so it didn't stay down. It didn't stay recessed, which is why it rose up and formed that nice that nice saddle stitch effect like we have right here. You're not going to see that on the back side of it. Okay, so on the inside of here, on the back of this, it's going to look a lot like this. It's going to look like a straight stitch. So why didn't the front of this turn out the way the back did right here? Okay, the reason is because this is hardened leather. This is wet molded, okay? So this was actually put into the oven to dry out very rapidly while it was wet and molded into this form. As a result, it's very hard. So whenever I punched it, whenever I punched these holes in, you can see that it has stayed recessed, okay, which is going to give you this effect here, okay, which is fine with me. I mean, this is to be expected, and can I make one that looks like this? Yes, it's just not going to be wet formed in this fashion, and I wanted a wet formed sheath for this particular axe. I like a wet formed sheath. I think it serves a lot of purpose, and so it's very easy to carry, and it's very easy to conceal your blade and make sure that you don't have a live blade, and easy to put back on your hip without having a live blade all the time. So we're also going to tie a lanyard around here to where it's going to be easy to pull out as well. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and finish this side up here. I just wanted to explain that to you, why this looks like a regular saddle stitch and this does not, is because it's recessed and it's very hard leather now. So it's not going to have that exact same effect. But the stitch is every bit as strong. Nice and tight fit. That will also loosen up. We can put some leather conditioner in here and everything. It's going to make that, that axe is going to wear into this. Also, we're going to put a rivet right here because this part right here will tend to come loose, and it'll tend to start wobbling. So we might put a rivet right here, and put a couple of rivets here, maybe 2 or 3 rivets along this edge here. Of course, I could also make this, I could also stitch this, right, which we also might do. Let me go ahead and think on that for a minute because that might be a cool effect too, but I thought that a brass rivet here might be kind of nice. So I do 1.5 back stitches here. So I do one right there, that's one back stitch. And then I'll come back through here and bring it back to the front stitch there. Pull those tight. And this is what I do, I tie it off. I know other people don't do that. They'll do a back stitch and only, then I'll just kind of tuck it in because it leaves a finer finish. This is for a tool, and I don't want to take any chances with anything coming undone, especially since it's mine. I'd do it, if it was a paying customer, I would do an even better job. But right here, I just like to have it good and strong for me. That's it, that's never coming out. So when we melt that, that is there for good, okay? So that's gonna be, there's no way that either of these are gonna back out. Okay, and I have the same thing on this back one here. You can see I've melted it on the inside of here as well. So almost finished. We need to put a couple of rivets here. I decided to use rivets as opposed to sewing. I just don't feel like going through the hassle of sewing it, but also I think that the rivets would kind of, add a little style to it as well. So I'm going to take this over to the drill press, and I'm going to drill it out with a, probably a very small bit, probably less than 1/8 bit, and that's just the easiest way for me to get this done. Be that this leather is so hard, and there's 3 layers I'm gonna have to be punching through. I would just rather use the brass rivets. So we'll do that.